Sylvia Plath, Poems and Biography by Jasmine West. 5 Sylvia Plath poems. The first I decided to do or look at was Mere. Sylvia Plath wrote the poem Mere back in 1961, though it wasn't published until 1971. Mere was first published in a book called Crossing the Water, which was put together by Ted Hughes after Plath died. The second poem I decided to look at was Daddy. Daddy by Sylvia Plath was published in 1965. The poem was published in the collection Ariel, which was published posthumously. The third poem I looked at was Witch Burning. It was published in 1962, actually by Sylvia Plath, and there wasn't much information about the poem's origins or why she wrote it. The fourth poem was called Love Letter. The poem Love Letter was written in 1958 and was published in 1960 by Plath. Plath wrote this poem about her ex-husband and children after her divorce. It was her way of coping with the situation. And the fifth poem I looked at was Medusa. Medusa was written in 1962, only a few months before Sylvia Plath passed away. This poem was published in the collection Ariel in 1965, along with a good majority of her other poems that she never got the chance to publish. Who was Sylvia Plath? In her early life, Sylvia Plath was born on October 27, 1932 in Boston, Massachusetts. Her father died in 1940 after having difficulties with his diabetes, and Sylvia was only 8 years old. At the age of 11, Plath started to keep a journal. This is when she started to write her poems. Soon, Plath's poems were being published in newspapers all around the regional area. So, around mostly where she lived, her poems were well known around there. Her college life. Christian Science Monitor published her first poem nationally in 1950. Plath had just graduated high school. Following this event, Sylvia Plath won a scholarship to attend Smith College. In 1953, Sylvia traveled to New York City to work as a guest editor for Mademoiselle magazine. Soon after, Plath fell depressed and tried to take her life. She attempted to overdose on sleeping pills, but thankfully Plath was treated at the hospital and she recovered soon after. She was taken to a mental health facility. In 1955, Plath finally received her degree from Smith College. Married to Death. On June 16, 1956, Plath got married to Ted Hughes. Together they had their children, Nicholas Hughes and Frida Hughes. In 1962, Ted left Sylvia for another woman. This caused Plath to become depressed once again. Due to the mental impact of the divorce, Sylvia Plath wrote her one and only book, The Bell Jar. It is based off of the mental breakdown Plath experienced, but from another woman's point of view. On February 11th, 1963, Sylvia Plath took her life. Literary criticism. I got this criticism from reading and the late poems of Sylvia Plath from EBSCO host from the Carl Sandburg Library's article search bar. The criticism starts off with stating how Sylvia Plath's poems are almost like a new language. The way she wrote was on a whole different level than most people. Back in 2005, which was when the criticism was published, the critic got a response from someone analyzing Plath's work stating, "We are still learning how to read Plath's later work," which was on page 37 of the article. This shows how advanced Sylvia's poetry skills were during her lifetime. The article goes on mentioning how Sylvia put her views on life into her poems. For example, the critic stated Sylvia had the obsession with meaning, also found on page 37. This critic could tell by reading Plath's poems that she was trying to find a meaning in her life. Plath reflected her feelings toward herself and her life into her poems. That is why it is easy for critics and readers to feel the poem. Sylvia wrote her feelings down in a way that people could feel alongside her. And I chose to analyze the poem Daddy because it seemed to have the most meaning to it, in my opinion. Alright, the meaning behind Daddy by Sylvia Plath. Plath's father died while she was still young, which means she didn't get to spend much time with him. In this poem, Plath describes her father's tracks that he's left. So I could never tell where you put your foot, your root. I could never talk to you, which was found on lines 21 through 24. She explains how she cannot find the path her father took, and she believes that it is tainted. Not God, but a swastika, so black no sky could speak through. Every woman adores a fascist. The boot in the face. The brute. Brute's heart of a brute like you. Lines 56 through 50. The poem overall shows Plath's feelings towards her father and how she resents him yet wishes for his guidance. Concrete images in the mood of the poem. The first concrete image I found was marble heavy, a bag full of God. Ghastly statue with one great toe, big as a Frisco seal. Line 8 through 10. Marble heavy and Frisco seal are both examples of concrete images. The marble heavy would have to describe how Sylvia's chest feels when she thinks of her father, while the Frisco seal would be the symbol of how big the situation is. The second concrete image I found in the poem was "And a head in the freakish Atlantic, where it pours being green over blue, and the waters of beautiful Nauset." Lines 11 through 13. These lines show that the light that Sylvia saw when it came to her father, even though most of her time with him was dim, she still had some good times with him. The third concrete image would be "In your neat mustache, in your Orion eye, bright blue." Line 43 through 44. In the previous lines, Sylvia is explaining her father's features, even though she made them sound good looking and actually pleasant to the person's eye. When Plath imagined these features, all she felt was fear and sadness, because that was the image that she saw when it came to negativity. "But they pulled me out of the sack, and they stuck me together with glue." Lines 61 through 62. Plath felt as if she's trapped and stuck, almost like she has no way to escape her feelings, which would also be towards her father, and how she just feels like she's stuck in this feeling that she would never be able to get out of. "There's a stake in your fat black heart, and the villagers never liked you. They're dancing and stamping on you." Lines 66 through 68. These last lines explain how Plath's father overall wasn't a good person. When the villagers stomped on Plath's father, that really means Plath doesn't forgive him for what he's done in the past. The overall mood of the poem is sadness and anger. Plath can't let go of the past. This poem shows that Plath's father wasn't the best dad or an overall good person. Sylvia Plath resented her father for a long time and never forgave him for anything he did. Connotations and denotations. An example of a denotation in Daddy by Sylvia Plath is the word daddy. A dad is a person who is supposed to love and protect their children. He is a symbol of strength and a beacon of light. Their job is to guide their children while also loving them unconditionally. But even though Plath's father did not fit this description, a father is still supposed to look after their children, which is why it's a denotation. In line 41, I have always been scared of you. Plath uses the word scared. This is a negative connotation. Plath feared her father. She feared him and what was going to happen to her family after he passed away. There were many things that she feared about him, but overall, she feared her father as a person. Figure of speech and symbols. The first figure of speech I found was a simile in line 3 to 4, in which I have lived like a foot for 30 years. Sylvia compares her life to a foot. She has not actually lived as a foot during her life, but that is how she feels. Plath sees her life as a failure. A foot touches the ground and usually stinks. Plath didn't see her life going anywhere but down, and it wasn't as glamorous as she hoped it would be. A metaphor, lines 77 through 78. And the villagers never liked you. They are dancing and stamping on you. Sylvia says that the villagers are stepping on her father. There are no actual people stomping on him. It's just a figure of speech. It's a metaphor stating that people didn't like Sylvia's father, and they would gladly put him down if they could. And the third figure of speech that I found was a hyperbole, on line 64. I made a model of you. It sounds like Sylvia made a live model of her father, but she didn't. A model means that she viewed her father as an example. She looked at his life and saw what was right and wrong from her point of view. And then there's a symbol. Sylvia Plath mentioned God many times throughout the poem. God is a symbol of love and peace, and she's comparing God to her father, who is nothing close to being a god. In line 46 to 47. Not God, but a swastika, so black no sky could squeak through. Plath is saying that her father is more like a swastika rather than a piece of God. She doesn't see any good in the man. And here is my work cited with all the websites I used to find this article. Thank you for watching.